Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So tonight I want to talk about Roe versus Wade being overturned and how Roe versus Wade being overturned benefits the Republican Party, but it also benefits the Democratic Party. Some people or some individuals and groups are talking about what is the outcome of Roe versus Wade. Some of it is from the feminists who are upset with it being overturned, related to women's rights to their reproductive organs. But here at Black American Muslim Opinions, I see another thing, another view. As the Democratic Party and the Democratic states are saying that they're not going to overturn abortion or make it illegal, or they're going to keep it legal in the Democratic states, and the Republican states we're going to enforce or make abortion illegal in the next 30 days in many Republican states, and many people are ups and protesting. But there's another way to look at this. As I drafted my thoughts on this topic from another video, and I said that what we see with the overturn of Roe versus Wade is the replacement theory, no longer a theory, but it's something that is in action. The replacement theory is no longer a theory, it's being implemented from the highest part of the US government, and that is the Supreme Court system. So on one end, as the Republican Party saying that they're going to hold abortion legal in their states, the Democratic Party also is implementing the replacement theory, making a reality and no longer a theory also. And this is some of the games that the government play. When I say white supremacy runs US government. So as the Republican Party overturned Roe versus Wade, replacement theory is no longer a theory. And the Democratic Party is also helping. How are they helping? Let's look at Biden. What has Biden done in his administration? The current administration in the US is Democrat. What have they done to help push the replacement theory, making the concept real? Biden has invited how many people to the US from Ukraine? Over 100,000 people. So the Republican Party on their end, making abortion illegal in Republican states, they are stopping white women from aborting babies. The replacement theory is now is a factor. It's no longer a theory. And the Democratic Party is saying, yeah, white peoples, we're not reproducing children. But we don't want to get those feminists mad. We want the votes of the feminists. So we're going to appear that we're against abortion. And you notice they haven't stopped it. They want to get the white feminists upset. But what they're actually implementing is that they're helping immigration into the US by Europeans. They know that white peoples are not reproducing in America. So what they're doing is allowing European immigrants to enter into the US. And how we know? The hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians who have skipped the line at the border to enter into the U.S. Come on. We got to use our brains. The Democratic Party allow 100,000 Ukrainians who we know for a fact that they are what? Neo-Nazis. They support neo-Nazis. They support white supremacy. Biden already gave them billions of dollars of aid to Ukraine and supported by allowing over 100,000 Ukrainians to enter the U.S. in front of everybody else, in front of the Mexicans, in front of the Haitian immigrants, the Haitians. They're not allowing the Haitians. Matter of fact, in U.S., the Democrats are sending the Haitians back to Haiti. They're flying them back to Haiti. They allow certain percentages of the Latinos come in, and they allow the Ukrainians to get ahead of all of them coming to the U.S. That's the Democratic Party also affirming that a placement theory is no longer a theory. The Republicans are preserving the white babies by what? Overturning Roe versus Wade. And the Democratic Party is allowing the immigrants from Europe to enter into the U.S. And Biden has also gave them millions of dollars of aid to enter to the U.S., setting up shop for them. What part of society are these Ukrainians the Democrats are letting in? What part of the society are they going to be entering? Are they going to be entering the black communities, the black society? No, we know that for sure they're not. They're not entering to the Latinos community. So where are they entering? They're going to enter into the white society. That's where we're going to enter it. So for all the white babies who have been aborted in the past, the Democratic Party will be flourishing the white population by allowing European immigrants to enter into the U.S. That's American politics, where those who people think Democrats are all just and for what is right, they're definitely not. While the Democrats is pushing in the black communities and the POC, they're pushing hard. Let's think about it. The Republicans are trying to save the white babies. The Democratic Party is bringing the immigrants from Europe. And then the Democratic Party on top of that, look what they're doing with the POCs, people of color. What are they pushing with the people of color? The Democratic Party. They're pushing the LGBTQI agenda in the black community. They're pushing it hard with the Muslims. They're pushing it hard in the inner cities in many Democratic states. They're pushing it in the public school, where it's majority blacks and Latinos. They're even trying to get the Muslims to push this agenda, and we can find that with Yakin Institute, is because LGBTQI agenda, in the end of the day, it is birth control. It is birth control. So while if they say inside the Democratic states they're not going to overturn abortion, not going to make it illegal, but they're pushing the LGBTQI agenda in public school to little children. They're trying to press little black boys and girls and people of color to be gay. And we know that two gay men cannot have any children. We already know that two lesbian women cannot have any children. So that's another form of birth control. And they're going to allow in the Democratic states, they're going to allow abortion to take place, meaning that a lot of the POCs, unfortunately, black African American women, going to continue to be getting abortions. And them black women who having children with Pookie and Ray Ray, them kids going to be taught in public school. All of us, all our children who's in public school is going to be taught the LGBTQI agenda. And it's forced upon them, and it's everywhere. So that means that they're going to turn boys. What's going to be the outcome of that in the next 10 years, 5 years? See, I'm 44 years old, and I can remember back in the US, back in the 80s, where they was first trying to push that stuff in school in the 80s. All right? They was trying to push that stuff in the school in the 80s. And what happened is a lot of the parents pushed against it, but they was pushing it in the colleges. So when you seen in America, in the colleges, a lot of the homosexual trend, gay trends were being pumped and being taught to them in the college. And you could find back in the 80s, when the AIDS epidemic hit in the 80s, there was a lot of men who were gay, who was experimenting, going through the gay phase. Those who was being pushed that stuff in college, it messed them up. They was from probably the first group of people to die from AIDS back in the 80s, in the 90s. So imagine now that was pushed back in the 80s to college students. The parents pushed it out from the public school, but it was pushed in the colleges back in the 80s, in the 70s and the 80s. It was pushed in the college. And that's when you had a lot of that homosexual things going on. And when AIDS hit, the AIDS epidemic hit, we seen the realities of many of those males, especially the black males, who was experimenting with that from what was being promoted in college. A lot of them died from AIDS. That is a fact. That is a fact. Now imagine they push that agenda to kids in school. Imagine now that is the agenda being pushed to kids in school. What's going to be the outcome in the next 10 to 15 years to those black children, whether they black, whether they Latino, that's being taught that and pushed that in public school from kindergarten up? It's going to mess them children up. And then we're already going to know that the outcome of that is going to be, okay, the kid is gay, the male is gay. Gay people don't reproduce children. So while the Democrats talking about, well, we're not going to stop abortions, they are going to be using birth control by teaching the LGBTQI agenda to them kids in school. And they're going to have psychological problems. We didn't even talking about the psychological problems that they're seeing right now. Imagine the next 10 or 15 years. The psychological issues is going to be harder, worse, suicide, worse. Plus, we know they're not going to be people reproducing, having children. And if so, these children are going to be dysfunctional. If so. So it is a form of birth control. So while the Democratic states, they pushing LGBTQI, which is going to be a mental disease that's going to sterilize males and females psychologically. They're not going to be producing children because it's going to be males with males and female with females. Male and males can't reproduce. So while the Republican is overturning Roe versus Wade to save them white children from being aborted, the Democrats in the Democratic states, they're going to be pushing your children to be gay. And we know that two gay people can't have kids. And they're not going to be having kids. When I say kids, 3, 4, 5, 6 kids. And they do have 1 or 2 or 1, you know the kid's going to come up dysfunctional. So it's going to perpetrate the dysfunction in that community. That is another form of birth control. Replacement theory is no longer a theory, it is a factor. White man is turning back his political clock. White supremacy is alive in effect. Don't think the Democrats are against white supremacy. They are part of the white supremacy system. As I keep on saying, they are the different side of the same coin. They have this a different tactic. They are passive with it. And they do it passive with it, because when they come with white supremacy in a passive way, the people of color, black people, they don't even see it coming. They think it's something good. LBGQ type, oh, that's something good. Why is it messing up their kids? I'm 44, Matt. I'm 44 years old. I can remember when I was a little kid, they was pushing that, they was trying to push that stuff in the public schools for kids. Many black families came out and said no. So instead, they pushed it to them in college. And that's when the AIDS epidemic hit America. The first people to go out or catch the disease were from the gay community, especially those in colleges who was experimenting with it. Imagine now, they're teaching it now to kindergartens. Don't let them Democrats fool you. Don't let them fool you. Don't let the Democrats fool you. What are they talking about in the Democratic states right now? They're going to permit abortions and stuff like that. Don't be fooled for a second to think they're on the right side of the truth or the right side of justice. All of them are supporting the replacement theory. Like I said, it's no longer a theory, it's a factor. No longer a theory. And what we're going to start seeing now, since the overturn of Roe versus Wade, the white man is turning back his legal clock. There already been changing the voting rights in the South to affect the outcomes of black people voting, meaning to make it harder for them to vote. White man wrote his laws for his own people so they could change it and alter it anytime they want. If they overturn Roe versus Wade, maybe they will overturn Brown versus Board of Education. Maybe start overturning those things. Maybe you're going to start seeing schools being segregated. You don't think it's not true? You think they can't overturn Brown versus Board of Education and segregation and turn around and make segregation in school? You don't think so? Why you think they're against the CRT theory? CRT being thought, critical race theory. They say, oh, it's an LGBTQI agenda. No, it's about them letting white children know what the white man did to non-white people in history. The white man don't want his kids being taught that, because they don't want their kids to feel bad about what they did to black people. They don't want their children to have any remorse, because having remorse for what white peoples did to black peoples and slavery and indigenous peoples, it will allow their children to put their guard down. And we know historically white supremacy are proud of these things, because America won't be in the position it is today if it didn't have slaves who did free labor. So the reason why they got an issue with critical race theory and they're pushing it out of their schools, because watch, sooner or later, they're also going to overturn some other things. Separate but equal. Might implement that. Overturn Brown versus Board of Education. Little by little. Some of us need to start thinking, especially black peoples, black Americans, and Muslims. See, the Muslims right now in this country, there's a group of them with the far right and a group of them with the far left. There's a group of them who are liberals. There's a group of them with the they are trying to fit in wherever they could fit in, hoping that the wherever is in power don't kick them out there, don't kick them out the country. They're only worried about what type of reckoning is going to come for them that's going to affect their economical situation in America. That's the only what many of them care about. So they're trying to lean towards whatever side is going to allow them to lay low with. And then when we look at immigration in America, I best believe certain type of immigration into America by certain race or certain group or from a certain country, best believe that's going to change real soon again. And how we know? Because we can understand by the Trump and his Muslim ban. That was only just a taste. I don't think Biden's gonna win the next election. He looked like, man, his mental capability is not there. Let's cross right here. His mental capability is not there. I don't think after this term finish, I don't think he has the mental capability to do another 4 years. I don't think so. Just the other day, he was showing his cue cards, and he turned it around. And this was on the news media that is not pro-Trump, not Republican, was showing this. And it was like, yo, what's wrong with him and the cue cards? And he was showing his side of his cue cards, and it's like, yo, man, you gotta tell this guy what to do, when to walk, where to walk to. And the language on there is like first grade language. I mean, the English level of the English was like first grade. I don't think Biden's going to do another term. I don't think he has the capability to do it mentally and his age. Unless somebody else is pulling the strings behind him. I don't think Kamala Harris, she's not able to do that. Just from her behavior and her demeanor. She reminds me of when people of color get into a position of power and don't know how to act. Where things become worse off than it's better. Because they're too busy on the high horse instead of doing their job. That's the vibe I get from Kamala Harris. Matter of fact, I work somewhere where an individual who was just like Kamala Harris working. That's the type of atmosphere was in the job. Matter of fact, she's mixed with the same thing Kamala Harris mixed. Indian Jamaican. I'll never forget this boss. Indian Jamaican on top of that. And they fired her. She had so many scams going on in the job, they fired her. She's too busy on a high horse. So I think Kamala Harris don't have it. So I think that's why they're pushing so hard for Trump not able to run again. And that's why they're focusing on him storming the Capitol. Or his followers storming the Capitol. It's to publicly ruin his career so people don't vote for him and trying to push the government to do something to prevent him from running again. And they might get what they want, but there's somebody else who support Trump going to run for politics or run against Biden anyway. So all these things these people are talking about, Roe versus Wade, who's going to win, who's not, I mean, what's happening, what's not. The white man, white supremacists, they showing us their hand. But many of us do not have the political intelligence to see it. They want to turn back the political clock in America. They want to make America great again, white again. It's going to be very hard because white people ain't reproducing kids like that. I don't care, even with the overturning of Roe versus Wade, but they probably thinking about the near or the far future. That's what they're planning for. But the immigrant population, the only way they're going to turn to lower the numbers of the immigrant population, the brown peoples, black and brown peoples, is by first lessening the amount of immigrants that come in here. Vet them. Don't allow them to come from like Haiti, but let them come from Mexico, South America, especially the ones who are Latino and white, which have their colonial slave master blood in them. That means that they're going to be submissive to the white power structure, because colonialism, white supremacy exists in South America. It's with Latinos. And they're going to take side with the white government. You might find out white males start marrying those white Latinos because white women are aborting their babies. That's why you can see, even some places I go, you see white men with white Latinos. And they have 2 or 3 or 4 kids. I see a lot of that. Trying to get a workout in. Just freeing my thoughts while I'm working out, you know? We got to turn around and start asking ourselves, or turning back and looking at ourselves and saying, hey, man, yo, black peoples, you got to get our stuff together, man. It's like we're looking at traffic. We see an accident. Something's about to happen major. And I don't take the steps or the precautions to make sure that I don't fall into that accident. I can see it coming, or I can see that event coming. We all got this feeling. We all got this little feeling, or we can see these things. Something's about to happen, about to come, the car or something. And we do the steps to prepare us not to fall in these predicaments, or fall into that predicament that we see it coming. Some of us, we see our life like this, and it might be, okay, let me get a college education. Let me get a job. Let me start my own business. Let me do this so I can have financial freedom. I'm telling you, black people in America need to put their stuff together, come together, because it's going to be very hard. Because the Democrats are not on black people's side. They're not. They're not. Matter of fact, the Democrats help those Republicans who are racist. The Democrat inflames the fire of their hatred. How they do it, man? They push the LGBTQI agenda, and with pushing that stuff, knowing that a lot of Americans are not going for that, they try to throw black people's issues with it. No, that's why you see the word BLM. You see a gay pride, and you hear something. You see somewhere in advertisement, they talk about the BLM, gay pride, BLM. Then the whites who are racist say, "Oh, look, it's that woke stuff. It's that woke stuff." So they're trying to, Democrats trying to insinuate black people's civil rights movement mixed with the gay stuff. So when people hear about LGBTQI and they don't like it, the first thing they start thinking, "Oh, black people," because they see that mixed with it. Oh, that's that woke stuff. The Democrats, they know how to play. They play both sides of the fence, both of them all together. Both of them are together. Inflaming hatred. But unfortunately, for our peoples, we sit on the sideline, and many of us, we don't say nothing, we don't do nothing, especially the African American Muslim. We don't say nothing. We don't do nothing. It's like we're saying, we think, oh, these people are not Muslim, they're disbeliever, that has nothing to do with us or Islam. It's like then I have to say it for you. If you live with these peoples, they're your neighbors. You live in their neighborhood. You live with them. They they're your neighbors. You live in their country. You live in a block or a street and a flood is coming. It's because you're Muslim. Doesn't mean that you're not gonna get caught in the flood. And that's how a lot of them African American Muslim, we look at politics in this country. Oh, this had nothing to do with us. But you living in this country. It's like when the flood comes, oh, I'm Muslim. The flood's gonna pass by me. And you live by the gates of the flood. The flood is not gonna affect me. It's only gonna affect these peoples right here. A lot of our peoples think like that. A lot of the Muslim community, they think like that. Some of them, not all of them. Some of them think like this. Especially the African American Muslim community. Politics is something we don't even. Oh, politics has nothing to do with Islam. All that stuff happened. That's the kuffar. That's just these people's. But then your kids go to public school, and you don't have the money, or your community don't have the money to build an Islamic school, and all your kids in public school being taught that nonsense. Then what you gonna do about it? Then you wonder why your kids get older and they're gonna be a certain way or have a certain behavior because they spent more hours inside the public school than they spend with you or been in the masjid. Masjid ain't open 24 hours a day. And when you go to the masjid, limit it if you pray in the masjid 5 times a day. Limit it if your kids only go to a weekend school in the masjid for Quran for 2 or 3 hours, but it's spending 40 hours a week in public school. What do you think the influence of your kids are going to be for the deen? There's going to be very little influence unless you got your kids in a private school. Very important that we get ourselves together as peoples. Very important that we get ourselves organized. Very important we give ourselves as a community, not individual, as a community, finance freedom, financial freedom. It's very important. And if we don't get that, or we don't get ourselves right, and we don't do what we're supposed to do as peoples, and we don't come together, we're going to perish as a whole. We're going to perish. In this country, we're going to perish, man. We're going to perish. You know? You have some of the Muslims, especially the African American Muslim, who don't get involved. I see them praising Trump. Trump don't got you on his mind. I remember when Trump said they need to be prayers in school. I see some African American Muslim, they was like happy, yeah, Trump. I'm like, Trump ain't for you. He's not saying that for you. He's saying that for his supporters, not you. He's not saying that for you. Matter of fact, he's gonna say you're the problem in the United States. Matter of fact, he's competing against you. The Republicans in the overturn Roe versus Wade to stop black women from having abortions. They don't care. Don't care nothing about you. Look at the parenthood. White supremacists started that. Go look at the founder of it, Planned Parenthood. Look at the founder. Look at her racist statement about black peoples. Where she said black people need to abort or limit the amount of children they have due to the stupidity. Look at eugenics. While these same people who are talking about they want to overturn Roe versus Wade and stop aborting their white babies, but these are the same peoples in Africa and the Middle East trying to control the birth population of people. But in America, they're not trying to control the birth population. White men don't want to be extinct no more. He wants you to be extinct. Look at these peoples, man. In America, they're trying to preserve white women from having an abortion. But in Africa, Middle East, they're trying to prevent the birth rate because it's saying it's taking up natural resources. But in America, they're trying to increase the birth rate of white women. Look at these people, hypocrites. Look at them. And an intellectual person got to sit down, black person or people of color got to sit down with some intellect, collectively, not individually, collectively, and have to be honest and truthful. Where is this society heading to? And what we as Muslims, us as blacks, us as peoples of color, what we're going to do to preserve ourselves, our community, our future, our children, and the future of our children, and the future of our finances. White man has that in plan right now for himself. I'm out. Got to set my piece. But that's something that we need to give some thought to.